The big challenge is to actually create a brand which sticks, create an experience which the players will remember, because there is way too much distractions now and they're not getting any smaller.
You're listening to 15-Minute Mastery, a show that empowers you with insights from leading iGaming experts to enhance your personal or business performance. The show is brought to you by the AI-powered data analytics platform Blask, and supported by tech-driven affiliate and media company Already Media, Lala Stars, the leading casino partnership program, and Next.io, the world's iGaming community. Hey everyone, and welcome back to 15-Minute Mastery. Today, we're joined by the one and only Phil Kornyshev. Phil is the head of acquisition at Pinnacle and was previously head of emerging markets. And he's an incredible expert and has got incredible experience in online gambling marketing and global player acquisition. We're excited to learn from his expertise on growth strategies for Pinnacle, both in established and emerging markets. Hey Phil, it's so great to have you here with us.
Hey Dmitry, very nice to be here. Thank you guys.
Okay, so let's start. Let's start with the first question. What do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities in player acquisition for both sports and casino brands today?
So the biggest challenge, I think, is getting players through the door who stick and who stay with the brand, because acquisition is expensive. Let's face it, brands spend huge budgets, and the main challenge is to make sure the player stays. Brands hate a player who deposits, loses, and doesn't return because they paid the CPA for the player and the big amount. So I would say it's the main one. The others, I don't want to sound too cliched, but there's a lot of noise recently in the industry in general with everything going on. The big challenge is to actually create a brand which sticks, create an experience which the players will remember, because there is way too much distractions now and they're not getting any smaller. So brands who can really capture that audience and stand out from the crowd will really prevail.
Yeah, absolutely love it. I think it sounds like a surprise for many, but gaming is becoming more competitive, and the brands are becoming more generic. So I really like your answer. So coming to the acquisition in more detail. So you used to run emerging markets previously, and now you're like the global head of acquisition. So how do you think the acquisition strategies are actually different between established and emerging markets? And can you share some of the effective approaches for each?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, established markets, they have a bit different structure than emerging ones. Already the player has an account in many sportsbook affiliation, and is more or less divided between the leaders, whereas in emerging markets it's sort of up for grabs, and brands really try to grab as much as they can through sponsorships, through deals. In my case, I would say the main difference is we try to look into the future. So when we see an emerging market, we see an opportunity, we see the players are maybe not as savvy and they don't know the pros and the tips of betting. So we try to educate them. We create a lot of content, evergreen content. We've had many cases, and other brands do it a lot as well. They create content which will stay around for many years, and suddenly, like in a year, it explodes and goes viral and brings a lot of revenue. So that's the main difference for us. I think in that sense that in established markets, it's very price sensitive, right? The player is price sensitive, and the brands, they compete with huge budget in a market which is already pretty much carved up. So for us, of course, the most interesting ones are the markets which are still only beginning to reach their prime, because there, if you play your cards right, if you create the right brand, the right content, work with the right affiliates, and create a correct strategy, a long-term one, not like a bite and run short-term one, it will really pay off in the future.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I really like the fact that you once again mentioning the brand because I think, and I keep saying this, is our industry is very performance marketing driven and probably even more affiliate driven than any other, marketing mix component. So I would love to hear your thoughts here. Like in your experience, what do you think is the best mix between performance and brand, especially in the emerging markets, and how do you mix two of them?
This is an excellent question because you constantly see affiliate managers and acquisition managers being pushed for ROI, for FTDs. But really, for me personally, it's a split, right? However you want it, 70-30, 50-50, but you cannot neglect the brand, right? There will be no good conversion in performance if there is no brand capital. If there's no top funnel, you can't convert in PPC. Affiliates will complain about it. So it's always important to keep that in mind and to keep pushing your brand to make the players search for it more and to gain eyeballs and visibility on top of the funnel because it amplifies the effect of the performance greatly. And a brand who invests in this element of exposure, they will always be successful, more successful than a brand which just does performance.
Right. And do you think like the brand marketing mix could vary from one market to another, and based on your like market strategy, or it's more attached to like your marketing mix in general? So what are your thoughts like whether it's aligned to the market or not?
I think per market element is very, very important because you always need to stay local. In Brazil, in Latam, you can hardly find a team, a soccer team without a sponsorship. There's a reason for that, and it's crucial for that market to kind of for players to feel that attachment to the brand. It's different per market. The mix it varies. You know, Africa and Europe and Latam and Asia, they're all hugely different. There are like established trends and ways of how to convert, how to manage this balance. But I would say always look at the local element because in the end, think of who the player is, their persona, what they do, how they behave, when they play, with what device. So this is all very, very important.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Phil. So talking about the balance, so I think I kept saying that the acquisition is finite, especially the performance marketing, and you cannot buy the same amount of players with the same cost, with the same quality. So how do you balance the need for rapid growth in certain markets with maintaining the quality of acquired players? And what metrics do you use to measure the success?
Mhm. So this balance is very hard to achieve. Again, we all have our KPIs, our goals. FTD is a big part of the goals, but I always say that retention is actually more important than acquisition because acquisition up to a point, it's more or less very similar. It's the scaling that gets hard. So you reach a ceiling in acquisition, which you can only go beyond if you have the correct product, if you have the correct retentions. But it's always for me, the things that I look beyond FTDs, I always look at player quality, how much they wager, how much is their second deposit percentage, when they play, how they play. To me, it's much more important than the NGR they bring in the beginning. Because if you're looking long term, if you're looking to acquire players which will stay, you need to look at their activity more than the financial KPIs in the first week, which everyone seems to chase, like ROI, payback period. It's very important, yes, of course, but sometimes you need to also look a bit beyond, because you need to understand that you paid for these players quite a hefty sum, and you need to basically squeeze what you can and get value from them, extract value as much as you can, because you already kind of paid the affiliate for them.
I love it. And I might have one very unexpected question because, talking with the head of acquisition, and I think this is probably the first time where a head of acquisition mentioned the word retention, I think 3 or 4 times within 10 minutes. So I was really wondering, what is your role in regards to retention in your current organization? And how do you guys build alignment between these two, probably the most important functions within the organization, like both acquisition and retention? Because I think sometimes organizations operate in a very deep silos where they have no idea what's going on. So can you tell me a little bit more about this part?
Yeah, it's all interconnected. Acquisition is very closely tied to retention. I actually also take care of key accounts, of VIPs within the company. So for me, it's especially important to understand who are the affiliates driving the VIPs, how well the VIPs are taken care of, how well are we moving along with the strategy. I guess my main point is acquisition is much easier than retention, right? You can go to any conference, you can easily find SEO, PPC, you know the rates, there is transparency, there are tools, there's so much information available. So everyone is more or less in the same playing field. But the interesting part begins when you check the product, because the LTVs among brands are hugely different, and whoever can extract the maximum value and treat the player better, and not just squeeze the player for everything they got, right? Because for me, and I recently started paying attention to how much cash the players have on hand, which is like very, very important. We don't want to think short term. We don't want to kind of cheat a player or create a bad experience, take their money, and they will leave. We want to create a valued player who will stick around for many years. And in that sense, creating this experience, it goes a much further way than just giving him a bonus or a reward.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and it sounds like quite a comprehensive 360 approach where you also not really, thinking about purely acquisition, but you also taking care of the product, which I really like. So maybe you can explain a little bit more about, like a role of a product and localization within your global acquisition strategy, and how do you adapt your approach towards a better product, a better service, and better marketing for regional users?
Yeah, so I'm a very product-centric person, and the company I work with, Pinnacle, is also our product is our main strength. So localization, it's not just like translations only, it's everything. It's how you package your experience to the local guys. And here, having experts on the ground, having a competent agency to help you, or even collecting, feedback from your best affiliates. It can really go a long way and create this correct experience, because for example, even if you take LATAM, right? They all speak Spanish, but the variation per country are very different. So you wouldn't do the same in Colombia, what you're doing in Argentina, in terms of like wording, in terms of how you present yourself to the client, to the player. So basically, you always need to take into account the nationality, the local element of players you're dealing with. Because usually, if you are an international brand, you come and you're competing against local brands who probably have a better localization than you because they work there, all their staff is there. So it's especially hard for international brands to penetrate these markets. And it kind of really highlights the effect of what a very localized product can do to your brand and how it can increase the values of everything you do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think this is probably the only way forward. Like I think this conversation has been packed with a very, I'd say, foundational insights, which many of the companies in the market right now, they don't really pay much attention to. And I think it was very valuable to hear this from such an expert as you and, someone who's running a marketing for such a big and great company as Pinnacle. I really enjoyed our chat, Phil. Thank you so much for finding the time and sharing all your wisdom with us. And I hope that our audience will also enjoy the episode as much as I did.
Thank you very much, Dmitry. Glad to be here.
Thanks a lot, Phil. Cheers. Bye-bye.